Director of the Communications and Society program. We look at the impact of network and information technologies on democratic institutions and values in a nonpartisan way, bringing together business, government, and the nonprofit sector. We are very pleased to welcome you today to with our speaker. Some housekeeping items. I want to welcome our audiences on C-SPAN and the Aspen channel on YouTube. And for those who want to tweet about it, hashtag FutureFCC is the hashtag. We're very happy to welcome the 31st chairman of the FCC, who was appointed by President Obama in 2013 and unanimously confirmed by the Senate. He's well known to the communications world from his past in the cable and wireless industries, and he, I think, is the only person selected to both the Cable Television Hall of Fame and the Wireless Hall of Fame. He's the author of Take Command, Leadership Lessons of the Civil War, and Mr. Lincoln's T-Mails, the untold story of how Abraham Lincoln used the telegraph to win the Civil War. He shepherded many important policies at the Federal Communications Commission over the last 4 years, including strong net neutrality rules, the first incentive auction in the world, and among others, modernized the FCC's universal service apparatus. He's had an ongoing relationship, we're proud to say, with the Aspen Institute. He spoke at our conference last summer, the report of which will be available on January 19th. We have, for those here, a little card reminding you that on the 19th we will be releasing Setting the Communications Policy Agenda for the next administration. And we're very proud to announce that our speaker will be the sixth consecutive FCC chairman to come and serve as senior fellow to our program after his chairmanship. So please welcome FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler.
Best team ever assembled at that agency. So you actually need to hear me. Is this the whole concept? It's the best team ever assembled at that agency. And, you know, I may be the guy that delivers the speeches and does things like this, but let's make no mistake about it. This was their effort. This was their success. And I will always be grateful to that fabulous team. You know, throughout my tenure, you've heard me talk about how we are living through an historic network revolution whose power to transform our economy and our daily lives is unprecedented. The FCC is the public's representative at that revolution. We have the responsibility of assuring that innovation and technology advance, while at the same time preserving the basic covenant between networks and those who use and rely on those networks. And for the past 3 years, we have moved through a key stage in the IP revolution. Well, the nature of how information is delivered has changed from analog to digital. The basic responsibilities of network owners to network users has not changed. We call this relationship the Network Compact. And its 5 components: access, interconnection, public safety, consumer protection, and national security were at the core of our major activities. To reflect changes in technology, we modernized telephone era programs for the internet age. The new Connect America Fund is supporting wired and wireless broadband deployment to millions of previously unserved rural Americans. A revitalized E-rate is delivering the bandwidth and Wi-Fi needed to support digital learning tools. Our revamped Lifeline program is helping low-income Americans afford broadband while rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. We also made sure that new technology was applied to help address the old problems of individuals with disabilities. We've taken a series of world-leading actions to repurpose spectrum for broadband and to meet the exploding demand for wireless connectivity. Our AWS-3 auction made 65 megahertz available for broadband while netting a record $41 billion for the Treasury. Our Spectrum Frontiers order made the U.S. the first country in the world to open up high-band spectrum for 5G networks and applications. And we're nearing completion of the world's first incentive auction. We also worried about competition. And to preserve competition in key markets, we discouraged the Comcast Time Warner cable and Sprint T-Mobile deals, while at the same time we approved with appropriate safeguards the Charter Time Warner Cable Bright House transaction, as well as the AT&T DirecTV merger, which will give Americans more competitive options for high-speed broadband while spurring fiber deployment to over 12 million locations. As the agency responsible for America's networks, we made cybersecurity a primary mission of the Commission. We adopted privacy protections that give consumers control over how their ISPs use and share their personal data. And of course, as Charlie referenced, we adopted strong net neutrality rules to preserve the open internet as a platform for free expression and innovation. The basic concepts that we were dealing with weren't new. The idea of an open network goes back as far as the first-come, first-served traffic management of the telegraph. Telephone networks' common carrier status was an extension of this concept that was warranted by a behavioral legacy and a demonstrated exercise of monopoly power. And let's not forget, it was the open telephone network that delivered the early internet and allowed America to go online. America's communications history is one of open networks. In a similar vein, the idea of privacy of information as it moves over a network is not revolutionary. For decades, telephone users knew that FCC rules protected their information, not just the contents of their call, but the information transmitted to set up the call. Yet, thanks to new technology, we found ourselves in the strange situation where the privacy protections of a smartphone's voice call didn't extend to the use of the same device and the same network for accessing the net. And finally, networks have always been attack vectors. During the Civil War, Union troops would take up the planks on Chain Bridge every night for fear that John Mosby's Confederate Rangers would use the road network to steal into the Capitol. Now, clearly we can't pull up the planks on the internet, but we can, must, and have taken collective actions to protect our network security. My service on the President's Intelligence Advisory Board prior to joining the FCC alerted me to the ever-growing importance of protecting our critical network infrastructure from cyber intrusions of all kinds. And it led to my determination to make cyber matters a leading priority at the FCC. So while our policy agenda was certainly aggressive and ambitious, the fact that we were largely dealing with the same, the fact is that we were largely dealing with the same issues that have long faced regulators. And it now falls to a new set of regulators, to a new FCC, and to those who advocate before it and the Congress to determine the road that they want to take from here. We are at a fork in that road. One path leads forward, and the other leads back to relitigating solutions that are demonstrably working. Looking forward is an era of ISPs operating responsibly at both the edge and core network, under light touch regulation, accompanied by a referee on the field to throw the flag when necessary. Looking backwards takes away existing protections and throws into question ISP expansion into edge activities. Now all the press reports seem to indicate that the new commission will choose an ideologically based course. Allow me to make the argument for choosing the fork in the road that moves things forward. First,
sorry, I missed that.
you know, when Siri doesn't get it, you're in trouble. So let me make the case for choosing the fork in the road that says we're going to keep moving things forward. First, I believe in the value of history, and the historical facts are clear. Those who build and operate networks have both the incentive and the ability to use the power of the network to benefit themselves, even if doing so harms their own customers and the greater public interest. Now, this is not casting aspersions at network operators. It is simply stating an historical fact that reflects basic human nature. It is no different than the human impulse that prompted the imposition of speed limits. The question going forward is whether the ISPs and policymakers will recognize that obeying speed limits helps everyone. The second point in favor of staying the course is that it certainly appears to be working. The overall goal of the new policies was to promote a thriving broadband ecosystem. And that's exactly what's happening. In the year after the Open Internet rules were adopted, venture investment in Internet-specific businesses was up 35% because open networks invite innovation. But investment has been strong not just at the edge, but also at the core networks. Yesterday, the CEO of AT&T reportedly told the president-elect that his company has been the country's leading investor of capital for each of the last 5 years. This, of course, includes 2 years since the adoption of the Open Internet rules. A recent report pegged overall network investment at $76 billion for 2015, which is an increase from the year that I arrived at the Commission. Putting that investment in perspective is also important. Network construction efficiencies are going up, and thus costs are going down as networks get more bang for the buck. As AT&T's president of network operations said this summer, quote, "In 2015-16, we are going to deploy about 250% of the capacity that we did in 2013-14. And we're going to do it for 75% of the cost." And this investment makes sense. Innovative new products and services have the effect of driving up usage of the internet. And with this increased usage, ISP revenue is up. And open internet drives revenue for the networks, thus creating incentive for the networks to invest. Network operators also have new opportunities to become edge service providers. During my tenure, we approved AT&T's becoming the country's largest video provider, and Verizon acquired AOL. Critical to that expansion is the assurance of network openness and the protection of privacy and security so as not to abuse the extreme power that network ownership naturally brings with it. By providing those assurances, our rules actually facilitate network operators' expansion into edge services. But the most compelling reason to keep moving forward on our current course with broadband policy is this. The open internet is currently the law of the land. Tampering with those rules means taking away protections that consumers in the online world enjoy today. What some describe as free market economics cannot simply mean freeing incumbents of their responsibilities. A hands-off approach to network oversight is more than a shift in direction. It is a decision to remove rights and move backwards. In this regard, and in so many others since the election, I have taken refuge in Abraham Lincoln's words in his first inaugural. Quote, "While the people retain their virtue and vigilance, no administration can very seriously injure the government in the short space of 4 years." Now, the reassurances of the second part of that statement are predicated on the first part, that the people retain their virtue and vigilance. Yes, we must be vigilant. And the first step in such vigilance is to ask those who want to rush to take away existing protections a simple question. Where's the fire? What happened since the open internet rules were adopted to justify uprooting that policy? As I said a moment ago, network investment is up. Investment in innovative services is up, and ISP revenues and stock prices are at record levels. So where's the fire? Other than a desire of a few ISPs to be free of meaningful oversight, why the sudden rush to undo something that is demonstrably working? Vigilance requires the FCC or the Congress make the case as to why the American tradition of open networks should be reversed. Fortunately, the rules under which the FCC must operate provides for just such vigilance. Contrary to what you might have heard, reversing the open internet rules is not a slam dunk. The effort to undo an open internet will face the high hurdle imposed by the Administrative Procedure Act of a fact-based showing that so much has changed in 2 short years that a reversal is justified. Let's remember, the open internet decision came after 10 years that saw vast changes in the technology of the internet as well as the services it enables. In short, a lot happened leading up to the 2015 open internet decision. And it is hard to make a case that the past 2 years come even close to that revolutionary period. The recent D.C. Circuit decision was a strong and resounding affirmation of the FCC's authority as well as the soundness of the Commission's decision based on the record. If there is a reversal of the Open Internet rule, it will have a high hurdle to vault to prove to the same court why its 2016 decision was wrong. But you know, it's quite possible that Congress will be the focus of efforts to take away open networks. Congress, of course, does not bear the administrative procedure requirements that are necessary to justify its decision. It also has the ability to completely redefine just what constitutes net neutrality. And so it might be worthwhile, therefore, to define for ourselves the key concepts behind net neutrality that truly preserve a fast, fair, and open network. Consider it a matter of truth in packaging. If something is deserving of being called net neutrality, it must be comprehensive, it must be continuing, and it must be consistent. So let's look at each of those a second. Comprehensive. Limiting the definition of net neutrality to blocking, throttling, or paid prioritization is an empty promise if it is not accompanied by the authority to comprehensively protect against the power of broadband gatekeepers, not just some of their conduct. What does continuing mean? We do not know how the internet will evolve and how ISPs will take advantage of new technology. A general conduct rule, which I've analogized to a referee on the field with the ability to throw a flag, captures conduct whether it is new or old, blatant or nuanced, with ongoing regulatory oversight and the ability to act where necessary to prevent anti-consumer and anti-competitive practices. And what do we mean by consistent? By this I mean a consistent standard so that no one, whether an ISP, a consumer, or an edge provider, has any doubt as to the yardstick that will measure fairness. Since the time of the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, there has been a consistent standard for judging carriers' practices. That being, are those practices just and reasonable and not unreasonably discriminatory? These concepts have 130 years of jurisprudence behind them, and they have evolved to effectively address the incentives that network operators may otherwise have to exploit their position to the detriment of consumers and competition. So passing legislation or adopting regulations without these key provisions and calling it net neutrality would be false advertising. Comprehensive, continuing, consistent. Those are the three legs of what constitutes true net neutrality. And when it comes to action by the FCC, it is important to recall that the DC Circuit found that the limited rules that the ISPs say they will accept, blocking, throttling, and paid prioritization, have their statutory justification in Title II. Thus, removing Title II also removes these fundamental protections. All of this is important because the ability of consumers and businesses to connect to and use open broadband networks is essential to the 21st century economy. The delivery of products and services that will define our future requires gatekeeper-free access to networks. So here's what we know about the future. Everything will connect and send signals. And it will be radically different from how we understand the internet today. The amazing changes brought thus far by the internet have fit into two categories: finding information and transmitting video. It's been a force of change, but not revolutionary. The revolution comes with the next step in the internet: harnessing that connectivity to productive activities. So for instance, I've seen machine learning artificial intelligence build an aircraft wing at Boeing. I've seen augmented reality assist and improve human activities at Microsoft. I've seen virtual reality transform information consumption at Facebook. I've ridden in autonomous cars at both The Ohio State University and that other school up north, the University of Michigan. What is significant about these and so many other next generation applications is they won't happen without network connectivity. They all have developed on the assumption that connectivity will be fast, fair, and open. And today, that assumption is guaranteed by the comprehensive, continuing, and consistent protection of the Open Internet Rule. To take these protections away at the request of a handful of ISPs threatens any innovation that requires connectedness, and with it, the productivity gains, job creation, and international competitiveness required for American economic growth. Similarly, as everything goes into the cloud, the ability to access the cloud free of gatekeepers is essential. If ISPs get to choose which applications and clouds work better than others in terms of access, speed, and latency, they will control the cloud future. Now, we have already seen how AT&T and Verizon have favored their own video services by zero rating their product while forcing consumers to pay data charges for their competitors. Just take that behavior and look at how it would affect other 21st century services. Whether it's Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or Salesforce.com's integrated cloud-based activities. ISPs free from open access obligations and behavioral oversight can choke growth and innovation, or at least demand tribute for passing over their network. And the growth of the Internet of Things is another area that depends on the open connectivity of those things. If ISPs can decide arbitrarily which IoT device can be connected, or favor their own ISP or their own IoT activity over their competitors, the bright future of IoT dims. No company using the internet is safe absent the kind of common carrier requirements America has historically expected of its networks. Even broadcasters' new ATSC 3.0 depends on open networks. Because it's a one-way capability, ATSC 3.0 requires a return path. Competitors to broadcasters control that path. Absent open access, the success of ATSC 3.0 could be in the hands of those whose video interests are quite different from those of the broadcasters. And overturning the open internet rule would also jeopardize the legal underpinnings of the broadband privacy rules. And indeed, the Republicans have targeted our recent privacy order for repeal. But in today's interconnected world, the absence of FCC regulation does not necessarily mean there will be no regulation. Rather, it simply creates a vacuum that will be filled by other rule makers in other countries. In the absence of FCC privacy rules, and with the recent court case raising serious questions about the FTC's authority to impose privacy requirements on non-common carrier businesses of common carriers, in the absence of FTC privacy rules, U.S. carriers could find themselves unable to qualify for the Commerce Department's privacy shield for their ISP business. The result would be the regulation of American businesses under the privacy rules of the European Union. But if you really need proof that the open internet rule is working, look at how it is being used by its opponents when they operate as edge providers. When AT&T, in its role as an edge video provider, is assured access to the broadband networks of Comcast and Charter for its competitive cable-like DirecTV Now service, it is proof that the open internet rule is working. One only has to remember the interconnection and porting debates that hindered the access of over-the-top video providers pre-open internet rule to appreciate the importance of open internet to everyone, even its opponents. But what is most significant, most interesting about this example is that the porting and interconnection problems that existed pre the open internet rule have been eliminated without heavy-handed regulation. The mere fact that the FCC declared interconnection a Title II activity under the rules, but chose not to regulate, has produced an upswing in interconnection agreements and a downturn in interconnection pricing. This is a significant development because it shows how the open internet order is successful simply by being watchful. There has been no ex-ante rate regulation. The simple fact that the FCC was the referee on the field, ready to act if necessary, has meant that the game has been played fairly. Access to the high-speed broadband network is what the new economy is built on, and it must not be taken away. The vigilance that Lincoln spoke of means that we must be alert to name only so-called net neutrality policies that actually retreat from the protections that exist today. The open internet is the most powerful engine for innovation, economic growth, and job creation in the world today. The opportunities before us are limitless. As we choose a path forward, we need to remember how we got here. We got here with smart government, not absent government. We got here with a government that was pro-competition, not pro-incumbent. We got here thanks to policies rooted in reality, not in ideology. Most important, we got here because the genius of America's inventors and entrepreneurs, and how an open platform allowed them to execute their ideas without having to ask for permission. Together, we have made so much progress. The activities of the last 3 years, from E-rate to Lifeline to rural broadband, from spectrum availability to 5G, from cyber protection to privacy and an open network, all are currently the law of the land. We must not forget that the proposals being floated to change what has been done would take away benefits that Americans now enjoy. It is time to keep moving forward. This is not the time to retreat and take things away. Vigilance to protect that which Americans now enjoy must be our watchword. And finally, let me close with a personal observation. Serving as chairman of the FCC has been the greatest professional honor of my life. I am grateful to President Obama for his confidence in nominating me, and again, to the incredible and dedicated staff at the FCC who honored me by allowing me to say I was their colleague. And to the lady sitting in the back of the room, my wife Carol, you remain the wisest and most loving person I have ever known. Attributes that were tested by your husband over the last 3 years as he brought home the tensions of the FCC. But you never wavered. I love you, and I thank you for being both supportive and challenging. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Wheeler. Just a reminder that we have these two reports coming out. First, the one that you have the flyer on, also one on artificial intelligence. Both will be coming out in the coming week or so. Also, we have Joey Ito coming here for a book talk on January 31st. So for those who are not aware of that, please come to that. Thank you very much.